Seems as though the video is still not working for anyone, correct?
Correct.
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 When the meeting was set up, was it set up as an audio or only?
It was set up just as a template like it usually is. So I'd have to go back and make sure that the template was correct. So I'm gonna cut out again.
Yeah, just take your time. We're fine.
Mm-hmm. I'm hearing thunder in the background.
Yes, I am as well.
Me too.
I just brought Toto in.
From Kansas?
Not a place I want to be.
Mm.
What if we lose electricity?
That will have an impact on our meeting.
Do we just reschedule?
I think we'd have to.
Right. I think I'm going to close some of my windows. So if my video comes on and I'm not here, I'm going to close some.
Oh, there I am.
Hey, one down.
There we go.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
No, it's just a matter of checking video, I think, because you do have to.
Yeah, start video.
Mm-hmm.
Nope, I can't start
I
video.
can't either. I cannot either.
Nor can I.
Hey.
Well, I feel special.
And we see Josh's picture, which is very nice.
That is nice.
Nice.
It's quite the profile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, painting, Josh.
Back and try again.
Linda, can you do it individually if you click on participants and then it shows you our list of names? Can you turn our video on that way?
Uh-huh. Okay, now try.
There she is.
I'm here. There we
Hey,
are.
all right.
I had to switch it to allow to start your own video.
Thank you, Linda.
Yes, thank you, Linda.
I'm going to be great at this by the end of the week, right?
Wow.
Okay, looks like everyone's here.
Okay, so I will start the recording and
Jason, you're getting a pretty mystical look there.
there we go. It wasn't showing the live to YouTube button.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're all set?
Okay, 5 seconds to live. It's just preparing to send it to YouTube. And almost there. All right, you're good to go.
Okay, thank you, Linda, once again, because I know this is
5.
challenging. Okay, so welcome everyone to the regular, actually it's a bonus meeting of the Great Salt Bay CSD, Wednesday, July 8th, which is today. Coming from you remotely. So I'm going to take a roll call. I see Mark Doe, Kate Castellan, Josh Jacobs. I see Sharon Markey, Stephanie Nelson's here, Jason Drake, and Angela Russ. So we're all here. We are skipping the Pledge of Allegiance due to no flag, awkwardness. And so the next item on our agenda is action on the minutes. We have two sets of minutes, one from our June 10th meeting, which is a regular board meeting, and the approval of the minutes for the budget hearing on June 18th. Do I have a motion to accept both minutes? Could be together.
I make a motion to accept both minutes.
Great, thank you.
Second.
Great. Do we have any questions about either of those? No? Okay, so I'm going to take a roll call vote again. Mark?
Approve.
Okay. Kate?
Approve.
Josh? You were muted, but I heard it. I read your lips.
Approved, yeah.
Sharon?
Approved.
Jason?
Approve.
Angela?
Approve.
And I approve the minutes, so they are approved anonymously. Next on our agenda, we're going to go right to the principal's report.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie. And if possible, I am going to share my screen with all of you. Linda, are you able to enable that? So I
Check.
can share the principal report? Otherwise, I'll just do it verbally.
Anybody want to give some hints?
And if this is a challenge, I can just do it verbally. Because school board members, you have a copy of the principal's report, and then for the participants, I can just go over some of the highlights. So our enrollment numbers have gone down slightly. We are now at a projected total enrollment of 400 students. We have some families that we knew were going to be moving out of our school community, but we have had a handful of families deciding to do alternative educational programming for next year. So some families are going to different schools in our community, and some families are doing some homeschooling. So we are down to a projected enrollment of 400, and it appears that I can share the screen. Then looking at the facilities and grounds work. So
Interrupt you just for a second, because I
Yes.
just want to ask about that. If we look at the enrollment numbers,
yes,
do we know, are any of those numbers because of the COVID situation where parents are not wanting to send their kids back to school in the fall?
as I said, like approximately a handful.
Okay.
Yes.
And
Go ahead.
Have we at all surveyed our parents about that issue, whether they
We definitely have. I'm going to let Kim speak to that, but we did survey the AOS. We did survey parents and staff. We did get some feedback. We're going to do it again. We did not disaggregate the results just yet to get them by school, but I'm a little surprised, to be frank with you. I mean, given what Kim's reporting, that you're down like that, because that wasn't really evident in the survey results, Stephanie.
Okay. And I can also see tuition students are down quite a bit.
And remember that our outgoing class was it was a very large class. So when we had our 8th graders graduate, we knew that that was a large class. And so, the classes upcoming were not going to be as large, but we have had, and with full disclosure with the board and the community, we have had some families elect to do alternative educational programming for their children. And again, as I said, it's been a very small number, but there has been some students that have some parents that have elected to do that we became aware of in
Okay.
July.
Okay.
And Kim, is 32 kindergartners a pretty solid number, or do you expect some more?
You know, Sharon, that is a very typical number at this time of the summer.
Mhm.
So very frequently, this is the number that we would have in June, in July. And, you know, where we have been trending is that number going up to typically 36, 38.
Mhm.
So, you know, that number is, you know, as I said, that's very typical for this time of the year in the summer. And we typically have other families enrolling later in the school year. And again, we may be having some families that are waiting until they know more about the plans for the
Mhm.
fall.
Okay.
So, but this number, as I said, is pretty typical. So I was not at all surprised by that.
Mhm.
And I also see that we have one open enrollment student in kindergarten. And is that necessary? Given our situation, that has to be a new student coming in.
I would assume that that's a sibling, probably of a staff member.
That, do you want me to comment on that?
As long as we don't violate confidentiality, yes.
Okay. That is a sibling of another open enrollment student who is, I believe, in 3rd grade or 4th grade, who was approved.
Stephanie, I can see your face. We thought really carefully and hard about those. We really did. The
Because
SIBs were the only ones that,
yeah, we're basically committing to, you know, 9 years of educating a student that's not in our community.
we are aware of that. As I said, I mean, not being defensive, we really looked carefully at all of the open enrollments this year. And the only people that we took were SIBs or siblings or staff members, kids who already had children there. We really have tightened it up. And Kim, I don't know if you want to comment on that or
No,
not.
I 100% agree with you, Craig. Very thoughtful decisions that came into this process. And again, we did tighten it up. So
And a number that were declined also.
absolutely.
I think that number's still, well, okay.
It's pretty much equal, I think, Stephanie, to number in, number out.
Okay. Okay. Okay, I just,
Yeah, I have to agree with Stephanie. I thought we were, you know, I understand we made commitments to certain students that were there, but now we've taken on a brand new student, and I appreciate that through confidentiality you can't share certain things with us, and we don't want you to, but I'm not sure how this is going to positively affect the taxpayers.
When I look though at the 7th and 8th grade, where we were taking many more open enrollment students, and now we're down to about 1, we are moving in the right direction. And sometimes there are specific situations that sort of roll into that decision.
We're at 9 open enrollment. And
9 in those grade levels, which was before the consciousness about this was raised.
correct, but then we were also had a significant number of tuition students previously
Yes.
that kind of offset that we do not have now. We're actually down 9 tuition students as of right now. Just saying.
And Sharon, Great Salt Bay for, I mean, the majority of the years that I've been on the board, we've always been conscious of students needing the right place to be and the right fit. But the board's been pretty adamant about not taking on additional, and I appreciate this is my last meeting, and you guys won't have to listen to me after this. Well, you may. I may come to the meetings, but I'm frustrated. We're taking on a brand new student that's never been in the building for 9 years. On the 3-town. The backs of the 3 towns, when you've got all the other schools in the AOS, and maybe they could have helped out. So that I'll leave it there.
I can't, I have to piggyback on that. I completely agree with Mark, and I want to point out that our policy very specifically says that just because this benefit is extended to one student does not mean it will be extended to another one. and nor is it it's not in the contract for the teachers. It's not a privilege and a right that teachers have to send their kids here. Or it is a privilege, it's not a right. And we've been having this conversation as long as I've been on the board, and it does, I agree with Mark, it feels a little bit frustrating that sure, we've made progress, but we're still having the same conversation. So either we need to change our policy to match our actions, or we need to really change our behavior.
I think it's supposed to be extenuating circumstances, or I think that's the word that we use, or I forget the word exactly, but compelling reasons.
Compelling reasons.
Just having a sibling in there, I don't think it's a compelling reason, especially one in the younger grades. So I'm really, I don't know when it's going to end.
Objections noted. I would acknowledge, though, that your administration made a very considered decision, turned away a number of students, determined to not bring in other tuition students or superintendent's agreements. Not sounding defensive, but we can certainly talk about it. But we made a decision based on the policy.
Okay. Okay, Kim, you can
Okay.
go on about that.
Okay. So looking at the facilities and groundwork, sorry, it's getting kind of loud out there. So looking at the groundwork, you know, Mark and the custodial crew has been very busy, you know, working on the inside of the building and the outside of the building. And as you can see, there has been a tremendous amount of groundwork that has been done. Some areas that I do want to highlight, which you know, are new projects for this summer. We did install the new gate to the back parking lot, and we installed the fence around the propane tanks. Some of the things that we have also done is painted out the back parking lot, and we've done some different directional painting because we are anticipating making some changes with the bus drop-off because of the COVID situation and trying to have different entry points for students. So we've done some changes in the back parking lot as far as the painting of the lines and arrows to accommodate some of the changes that we're going to make with transportation. Under the facilities work, and this was the work, getting feedback. This was the work that needed to be done by June 30th. We have installed the propane tank gas detection in the boiler room and the kitchen. The fresh air vent was installed in the cooking area. They did take care of the walk-in cooler in the kitchen with new equipment. In the locker room, we've done some upgrades to the locker room because that has been an area of the facility that really has not been addressed in a number of years and decades. So the crew did some work in the locker room, as you can see, and the standard cleaning that we would do during the summer in the classrooms on the east end. When this report was published at that time, we had not had the installation of the new room that is between the main office area and the principal's office. And Sharon, Mark, you got a chance to see that today, and it's a positive improvement, correct, Sharon?
Right. It looks great. Should have been done a long time ago.
And so in addition, the other thing that Mark and I have been working on very closely is looking at the ordering of PPE. We had some samples sent to us. So some of the samples of the face shields, and some face masks, you know, for the different sizing. So this is, you know, work that Mark and I are doing with feedback from some of the other facilities managers in the AOS, and then some of the contacts that Mark has through his network of, you know, school plant maintenance. So we're continuing that work. In regard to the student and staff update, one thing I didn't put in here, but we did talk about it at the last board meeting. After the school board meeting, we did publish the last newsletter for the school year. And so that was shared with all members of the school community. And I was not anticipating a lot of feedback from that because I think a lot of people were just ready to take a break from the school year. But I think it was important in that newsletter to really highlight the efforts of our students and our staff during the final month of the school closure. So we sent that out, and we also were able within that newsletter to highlight our 8th grade graduates. So that was, a positive thing to have go out to families. I've included in this principal's report that there was some very important professional development that we did on June 15th and 16th. And 3 of the activities we did numerous activities individually, PLCs, some in the building, some remotely, but 3 of the activities that I felt it was critical for the board to be aware of is the beginning of our implicit bias understanding. So we listened to that podcast. Craig shared that podcast with us administrators. And so, I do hope the board has an opportunity at some point to listen to that podcast as well. We asked all of the staff to read and reflect on the guidelines for instructional continuity. These were guidelines that were spearheaded by Ann Hassett and had feedback from many of the educators in our AOS. So we spent time looking at those. And then I also had shared with staff that at this point, the very newly published draft framework for returning to the classroom instruction. So staff had an opportunity to review those documents. We have begun our Summer Institute, and we have 4 teachers providing that instruction. Christy Houghton, Gary Rosenthal are doing the K-4 programming, and Sherry Simmons and Jerry Pinkham are teaching the 5 through 8. And again, as noted in this report, we're focusing on reading and mathematics. And in total, we have around 44 students participating. Some are participating solely remotely. Some are participating in a combination of remote and on-site. One of the things that I had commented, just this morning with the group is the fact that typically when you're thinking about a summer school experience, or, in this case, we're calling it within the AOS a summer institute. Oftentimes there's not the joy of children having to come to school during the summer, but one of the things that was very important for us to be aware of, many of the students, especially at the elementary level, are excited to have this experience, to be back in the building, to be working with teachers. We have it set up that when there is a small group, we are socially distancing in the classrooms, and students are wearing face masks, and as are the teachers. But again, it was, I think, very important for us to be aware how excited they were to be back in the building, and that normalcy of this being a critical learning environment for our students. So that Summer Institute is scheduled to last for 4 weeks, and I am very grateful and indebted for the educators that signed on to do this programming for our students. We will be beginning our very formal planning stage for the collaborative planning team. We have our first meeting is going to be taking place tomorrow. And as I note in this report, it's going to have the key representatives of our school community. So, it is definitely a collaborative process. It's going to include, as I note here, administration. Mark Hager is going to be part of it. Alan Dodge, Debbie Newell, Veronica Babcock is going to be representing our special education teachers. Janet Dempsey is going to be representing our support staff members. Chris Coleman is going to be representing our teachers. KJ is going to be a critical member. And I'm anticipating this being a weekly need. So we will be tasked with the responsibility of coming up with the 3 plans for the fall. So the first plan would be for a full return to school. Again, full return to school following the guidelines and recommendations that are put forth by the CDC or the Maine DOE. A hybrid program or the remote program. So, our task. Craig informed the administrative team that our goal is to have a draft completed by the end of July. So as I said, we're going to begin that work tomorrow. And as I indicated earlier, Mark and I are in the process of securing the necessary PPE. Sharon and I participated in the interviews today for our school nurse, and two very strong candidates, and Elsa Parsons will be contacting one of those individuals and extending an offer. And again, because of the process that takes place with Lincoln Medical Partners, it is a much more elongated process with their HR department than it is for us. So I have to admit that, when she was giving the timeline and she was talking about 2 to 3 weeks, having someone on staff, where typically, hiring staff in the school setting is a little bit faster. We need to anticipate it's going to be 2 to 3 weeks, but, Elsa is 100% understanding the urgency of filling that position, because the school nurse is also a critical person that needs to be part of our collaborative planning team. So I was pleased that, that process went very well this morning. And we're also in the process of beginning the hiring process for educational technicians. I wanted to provide the board with an update about the technology, because again, we were a school system that decided to put in the hands of our students and their families the educational devices that were necessary during the remote learning. And so we had 335 devices that were loaned, and to date we only have around 5 devices that still need to be returned to us. We do have the students that are participating in the Summer Institute do have their devices for that program, and at the end of that institute they're going to be returned. KJ is now, after the devices sat for 2 weeks, KJ is beginning the process of going through, doing the cleaning, the updating, and we did a visual inspection of the devices to see if there was any visible damage. Happy to report that not many of the devices were visibly damaged. However, now that we're starting up devices, KJ is encountering some problems with some of the devices. So that's going to be a very involved process to get all of those ready. And then from the transportation side of things, Debbie, always is working on, developing the routes. However, in this situation, we're going to have to look at developing different models for how to do the routes, because again, a lot of the recommendations are encouraging social distancing on the buses. So if we follow those social distancing recommendations on the buses, it would typically be 1 child per seat unless they're sitting with family members. And again, depending on the hybrid model that we adopt, we may need to look at multiple different, multiple routes, staggering of students and pickups. So this is something that, Debbie's going to be working very closely with me, and why she's a critical member of the collaborative planning team. Since the board oftentimes is asking for just, updates about, the bus and their mileage, I just wanted to share that information with you as well in this document. So I'm open for questions or comments.
I'm just curious if, as part of this, you've gathered information about teachers and bus drivers and staff who may not feel comfortable coming back. Are we going to, we can add routes on our buses, but if we don't have bus drivers, we may not be able to do that.
I'm going to jump in and say we have not done that. We will be doing that. We did survey staff and parents. We did not get anything that concerned us about the number of responses from staff indicating that they were not coming back, but we have not specifically asked, but we will be. Yes.
Thank you.
And then I'd like to also say, Kim, if you need a nurse on your collaborative planning team, on your school crisis team, Daryl and Gregory at Lincoln Health, who is a South Bristol nurse, that is kind of her role right now with Lincoln Health, where all the other nurses are doing something else. And then also when you talk with Debbie and reference the guidance around buses. I think you probably all saw that CDC has just announced today that next week there will be new CDC guidelines around social distancing and return to school protocols. So when we get to return to school or reopening, I know that there's frustration in terms of the lack or the slowness of progress, but I have to tell you, it's just such a changing environment that each step forward is a step back. And this announcement didn't help at all, but we're moving ahead. You move ahead tomorrow, Kim, with your team, and then we adjust the guidance or adjust the plan according to the guidance that comes out.
Kim, I'm wondering if you've contacted parents, or you plan to, because there's so much driving to school that happens in the GSB community. I wonder if you can whittle down some of the bus riders dependent on parents that want to transport their own children.
And we're planning on doing that as well, Sharon. Absolutely.
And that is our hope across the AOS, Sharon.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it addresses and supports some of the concerns that parents have about placing their kids on buses as well.
Mm-hmm.
Until we know what the safety, the community spread, and all of those other factors are that we just aren't sure of yet.
Okay, any other questions for Kim? Thank you,
Yeah,
Kim.
I have a question about the tuition students. I know that there were some tuition students early on who we had to turn away. I seem to remember that. And now that our enrollment is down so much, would they be interested in reapplying or enrolling?
Many of the tuition students, Josh, that we turned away were at the middle school level, and in particular at the 7th and 8th grade level, because again, because of the Edge Committee school situation. And going back, just resharing my screen, knowing that we're at 57 and 56, I would still be hesitant to open up to accept tuition students at those grade levels, given the size of those classes. And again, given the constraints that we're going to have, with social distancing and other.
Apart from social distancing, though, it is isn't the 7th and 8th grade going into next year smaller than what we just completed, or am I reading that incorrectly?
No, it is. It's like last year's 8th grade was 66 students, but that was excessively large.
Okay.
And so this is a much more, still high, but much more reasonable number.
Okay.
Not good.
All right, thank you, Kim.
You're welcome.
Okay, we're on to the chair's report, and the next regular meeting of the Great Salt Bay CSD Board will be held remotely on Wednesday, August 12th, 2020. The next meeting of the AOS Board is to be determined, and we're on to committee reports, facilities and transportation. Have you met? You have not met.
We did not meet.
We did not meet. Kim and I talked about that. We looked at where we were. I think we just had a recent meeting, and there was really nothing on the agenda to bring us together as far as modifications or changes that we knew about for reopening. And I believe all of the end of the fiscal year 20 projects were well underway. Kim, I think though, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but I think this is time to address with the board the antique show.
Sure.
Because I think that was one of the things that we did talk about the last time that we met. Then we didn't meet in June, but I think it probably would have come up again. And I don't mind going there if
No, go ahead. Yeah, Craig, if you could do that, I could bring up the email.
There was a request, as you know, there's an annual antique show at GSB. Mark Hager had received a request for this year. We reviewed it briefly at the last facilities meeting. We weren't sure about how we really felt or the timing of it. Mark was reaching out to the organizer. Another email came in requesting follow-up and approval for the antique show. I believe it's August 15th, Kim?
Yes.
And Kim asked me about that today, and my response was, I am not at all comfortable approving an antique show at our public school as we're preparing to bring kids back. I think there are questions about not just the use of the school, but we don't know who's coming to our school. It's the optics of it, I think, in terms of the way that it looks. Our school is for students and staff. I'm not the medical doctor, but I think I'm concerned about participants who we don't know possibly infecting a custodian. For a lot of reasons, I advised against it. And I sent that off to Kim and Jason this afternoon.
I think that we should suspend any uses for the school that don't or aren't based in something for the municipalities or a true school function. At this point in time, I think that it would be wrong for us, as you've pointed out, to bring anything that isn't education or community nonprofit, being, and I guess I ought to rephrase that, that isn't going to be for the towns, Newcastle, Damascus, or Bremen, or something education based. Other than that, I don't think we want anybody in the school right now. I think that would be a poor choice.
I entirely agree, and I mean, and not to be dismissive, I think it's a distraction for us. I think it's another thing to consider, to set up, to take down, and it distracts us from our planning for return to school in late August, early September.
Mm-hmm. I agree too. Mm-hmm. Great. Okay, the finance committee.
Can I just follow? I'm sorry. So
Sure.
Mark will reach out to the antique organizer and inform them that we are not going to permit them to come. Okay, thank you. Sorry, Stephanie.
Okay, the finance committee did not meet, but there are, we did look over did everyone see the finance report, the monthly finance report?
Mm-hmm.
I reviewed that, and there's just a couple of things I wanted to point out. One was, well, I'm going to channel Rick here and say that even though our fiscal year ends on June 30th, and this was through June 30th, it's not the audited amounts. So there are still expenses that will be taken out. I assume, especially, I did see on special ed, our shared services, the psych, OTPT, those salaries were not expensed. So I assume they will be coming in. So I just wanted to point that out. And the other thing that finance related is that Angela's been acting as our treasurer and she is leaving. So as of next week, we need someone else to sign and be the treasurer. I guess this could be a question for Rick, but I'm happy to sign, and I think I'm allowed to sign until we assign a new treasurer, unless anybody else is interested in becoming treasurer before our August meeting.
I think it's probably fine that you sign, Stephanie.
Okay, because our August meeting, we vote on chair, vice chair, treasurer.
So reorganization for August.
That's normally when
Okay.
it happens.
Good. I'm starting an agenda.
As long as Angela feels that it's okay, because her name is actually printed onto the
Ooh.
checks, and it involves a lot of signatures with the bank to get the name changed on there. We don't want to just change it for a month. It takes us almost 30 days to set it up. So as long as it was okay with Angela to continue for that 30 days until the next meeting, I think we could just extend and then elect the treasurer that's permanently on the checks.
Mm-hmm.
I think Stephanie's right. We need to check in with that. I think it puts Angela in a funny spot because she's not technically on the board after the election on the 14th. Am I correct?
Correct. I am until the new candidate is sworn in, and we can delay that if we need to
Okay.
until just before the August meeting.
I
Are
think
you okay with that?
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm the AOS's board is in the same boat, and the treasurer there too. So there's a lot of signing that gets done every week.
right. We had the same situation when Josh Pinkham was off the board and someone new took his place, we had a little bit of time where we just had to continue until we had the new person on.
Right. Do we have warrants that need to be signed?
I've been signing them.
August?
There will be in August.
Okay.
And that's the Damarascotta AOS. And then we have the Newcastle and Bremen representatives signing the warrant as well. No, you're the treasurer for GSB is what I'm sorry. Gotcha. Okay. Got all those signatures. Okay.
Okay. I know the policy committee has not met, but Craig and I talked that there are a few policies that we need to get on.
There are, I believe, as all of you have been following, there are updates to Title IX, anti-harassment discrimination policies that have come out of some federal Department of Education changes to the rules. Those policies need to be updated. MSMA has sent those out, and I want to bring those to policy, but we'll convene a meeting when we have a better sense of the policies that need to be updated to address the return to school, and those policies would relate to attendance and student issues and some of the things that more directly impact our return to school. We're watching those, and as I mentioned Darylyn before, Darylyn Gregory, the nurse from South Bristol, is part of a statewide group with the Department of Education that is looking at those policies. Then there are some other policies that I think locally will pop up needing amendments, adjustments, updates as we look at our return to school policy, return to school procedure or plan. So yes, we will probably be meeting sometime late July, early August.
Great.
Can I make a policy recommendation about those, particularly the Title IX one that was just updated? It's mandatory. It's one of the cookie cutter, pretty short policies. I guess I would recommend that, Craig, you just bring that straight to the board for reads and bypass the policy committee. I think there's never a lot of discussion about those.
Thank you, Angela. I think that streamlines it beautifully, and it takes away the distraction of policies that we don't have the ability to modify anyway, and it allows us to focus on those local policies. Thank you for, yes, that was kind of what I was hoping to do, but I was going to go through the policy committee to do that. So I'd rather do it directly.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. So the last part of the chair's report is tonight is the last meeting we're losing 2 board members, Mark and Angela. And I wanted to take a moment to recognize both of them and their contributions to the board. First, Mark. He's served 3 terms, 9 years on the board, which is a huge commitment, and it's really appreciated. Mark's public service doesn't stop at GSB. He has a number of other boards he's on, has been on, and volunteers for, including the ambulance service. So the whole community really appreciates your public service. Mark, your contributions to the board also have been great. The facilities committee, your expertise will be missed. I don't know what we'll do without you. Your help on the support staff contracts. You've been my vice chair, I think 3 or 4 years now. And I really appreciate your steady, solid presence on the board and your grounded perspective. I often think, what would Mark say? And that's good to keep me in line. But I do know what you would say, because you're always saying whatever is best for the kids. And I think that speaks highly of who you are. It's always about the kids and GSB, and I really appreciate that. Thank you for your service, and you will be missed on this board. I have a little something for you, which I will deliver in person. Okay, I can't see you because you're backlit, but thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, I thought I was only saying goodbye to Mark, but I'm also saying goodbye to Angela. And Angela's contributions to GSB start well before her coming onto the board. So we really appreciate, I want to recognize your leadership on the PTO and the formation of the Friends of GSB nonprofit and the playground build, because none of that would have happened without you. Thank you. Angela served 6 years on the board, and she's had many contributions, including serving on the policy committee, where your attention to detail and grammar will be missed, sorely missed. You've joined me in negotiating 2 teacher contracts, and Angela's also served on the board, the AOS board, for I think 5 years or maybe your whole term, and vice chair the last 2 years. And again, as treasurer, AOS and GSB. So Angela's been quite busy. And the one thing I also want to recognize you for is that Angela headed up the superintendent search, which was a lot of work, and brought us Craig. So I'm quite pleased. And thank you for doing that. So again, thank you for your service to GSB community. You will be missed. And actually thank you for finding a replacement. So, okay, I think that ends my report.
I would say it won't be the same without both of you.
I know it won't be.
You will both really be missed. It's kind of a struggle to look forward to the next meetings, and I'm sure they'll be fine, but both of you have very strong commitment to GSB, and it's really appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
It's been an honor and a pleasure. I've really enjoyed working with everyone on this board, and I've learned a great deal. It's been a fabulous experience. I have no regrets.
Mm-hmm. Likewise. Okay, so now it's on to the superintendent's report. Craig.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. You've mentioned, Stephanie, the financial review, and Rick is on vacation, so we're going to skip over that. A couple of notes. The special education director, as you know, Sue Fawcett, is leaving us. She will be here through the end of July. We are interviewing 2 candidates on Wednesday. We have a very strong interview or screening committee, and I'm hoping that we will be able to offer the position to one of the 2 candidates. That is Wednesday, 2 candidates, both of whom I think could fill the position, not fill Sue's shoes necessarily, but can do the job. So I'm hoping that I'll have news for you by the end of next week around a replacement for Sue. At last month's meeting, the June meeting, the board was asked a question during the meeting about a statement around Black Lives Matter. The board responded. The statement was published, was finished by Kate and Stephanie and some members of the school staff. Also, as a result of that discussion, the AOS has formed a diversity committee that will operate similar to the wellness committee. Ann and I had talked about that idea. We floated the idea, and probably within a half a day, we had 20 volunteers from around the AOS to participate. Administrators, support staff, teaching staff, willing and wanting, eager to participate in a committee that will look at equity and justice, the way we teach kids, the way we honor diversity. So that committee has not met. It should meet prior to the end of the month, and we'll start having regular reports on their activities. I think one of the first things we'll be doing is defining what the committee is going to do, and then looking at professional development for staff. Reopening is a huge issue. I shared with you over the weekend an outline of what we're looking at. I believe that at our last meeting in June, I probably the same as in May expressed to you my concerns about the things that we don't know and the numbers of questions that we were trying to answer. I think that we're making significant progress moving forward. As Kim referenced, bringing together collaborative planning, the crisis intervention, essentially planning team, looking at 3 models, hoping to have draft plans available for board and public review by the end of July, and then bringing them to the board for the August meeting. I do want to reiterate what I had written to all of you over the weekend, that this is not an AOS decision. The AOS has management and different responsibilities that are articulated in the interlocal agreement, but the individual boards and the individual towns will be making this decision. So the AOS plan may not be the same as the plan that Jefferson, Noblesboro, Bristol, South Bristol develop, but all of them are going through the same process of talking about 3 plans. And my focus right now is bringing kids back to school. I am hopeful that in August, we will, with social distancing, modified schedules, some staff assignments, some addressing all of the needs to keep kids and staff safe, we will have on-site school. That certainly could change, and that is why we are looking at the hybrid model and the remote learning model. And also why I mentioned the CDC change of guidance and guidelines, because each time something changes, we're left taking a step back and making some modifications. But as the principals and I talked about yesterday when we met, we all recognize the need to outline 3 separate plans and acknowledge that at any time, certain elements of those plans may need to change. One of the things that came up, and I'm sure that you've heard, when we met in June, we were talking concretely, specifically only about 6 feet of social distance. That now has changed from 6 feet in some circumstances, but 3 feet is also being considered an appropriate distance. The Department of Education has created and not disseminated in, I think, a very effective way, surveys for parents, for school staff and school administrators, because and that survey went out and opened on July 6th. It will close on July 12th. Our understanding is that they will use the results of that survey to make recommendations or directives for school systems around opening. I shared with the board, I believe, I know I shared with the principals, the Portland Press Herald article where Commissioner Macon was quoted as saying that she and the governor will make the recommendations about opening. We all read that, we heard that. I'm not sure what that means when you start to parse that out. But I know that survey is out there. I will be sending out a letter to all families and families, parents, and staff, updating people about where we are, the 3 plans, how to access the survey, how to access additional information on the DOE website, so that parents do know that survey is there and can go to the site and respond to that. So that letter will be coming out. It will also let parents know that our plans coming from the individual schools will be coming out by the end of July for review. I started today at Jefferson doing a walkthrough with Principal Johnson and her facilities manager, looking at and listening to, making suggestions around class configurations, modifications, changes in the way that we do school for on-site. It's trite to say, but it was an eye-opener. It was a really good exercise for me. I summarized my notes, sent them out to the principals, hoping that those notes will advise and provide some guidance in terms of what one school is doing and things to look at in the other schools. So I feel that we're moving forward now. We have a timeline. Coming back to Kim, GSB's committee is coming together. I know Noblesboro's committee is coming together. Jefferson is coming together. Most meetings are weekly. Bristol's coming together. South Bristol is also coming together. So we've got the similar structure in each of the schools coming together to develop 3 plans to bring to the community, and to also be dynamic and flexible. Nimble, I suppose, is one of the words, to respond to changes as they evolve and as they develop. But I'm going to say again that my commitment is to try to bring us back to school. And with that, I would be glad to answer questions, but other than that, Stephanie, that's my report. You're muted.
Okay, I do have a couple of questions. The board is going to have to approve a plan. So if it's done in the end of, I mean, is that the way it works, right? We have to approve a plan for the opening, school opening?
That is my intention, is to at least ask the board to review the 3 plans and then to acknowledge that my recommendation, hopefully at that time, will be based on the work of the collaborative planning team at each of the schools. Here's the way we are going to come back to school, and here's how we are going to work with social distancing, preventive measures, staffing, what are our extra needs, and that the board approves that plan. Yes.
Okay, because our next meeting is August 12th, and we
Yes.
start school.
We may need to, and it has come up in other communities, we may need to schedule a meeting earlier or a different meeting. And if we can, Stephanie, I would ask the board's indulgence, if we can schedule earlier and if we're ready to do that, we should think about that. But right now, that would be the regularly scheduled meeting. But we're also hoping to get most of this information out to the community for some feedback prior to that.
Mm-hmm.
We know that people are eager
Right.
to find out.
I guess my other question was about like some of the legwork on, and like I don't have an idea about, if we follow the social distance guidelines of 6 feet apart, how many students does that leave us in a classroom at GSB?
That's what Kim is looking at. When I went to Jefferson today.
No.
Sorry?
We haven't figured that one out yet?
No. The groups are coming together. We know what our class sizes are. The directions have been, and I know that Kim has done some of the work, but it's bringing in the other voices. When we went into kindergarten at Jefferson today, what we looked at were a number of round tables and distancing those from one another, listening to the recommendation that the round tables will be split with Lexan glass so that you can have 2 students. They will be 3 feet apart. In kindergarten, they do a lot of project-based learning. They do a lot of center-based learning. A lot of those things that teachers are used to having in their rooms are going to disappear, and staff are going to be doing things differently. Different schools are going to be able to do it differently. And I believe that I mentioned before that, as you know, South Bristol at one time had over 100 students. They now have just about 60 students. They have additional space. Jefferson has 2 unused classrooms. Great Salt Bay, the issue we've frequently spoken of is how tight space is. It is going to be a challenge for the staff and for Kim to figure out how many students, and are there other classrooms, other spaces that can be used. But that is the directive we've been giving from the Department of Education. It hasn't been done. It's only been 2 weeks since our staff have been out of school, and we've been teaching remotely, planning for the end of the year, doing professional development, and now we're really ready to get going. And again, I just want to say that so much has been changing, and I don't want to perseverate on it, but just noting that the administration in Washington is pushing, and I don't know how hard they're going to push as far as these things around withholding funds or threats about schools that don't return. And I do not want to be in a situation where we're responding to a threat. We want to do what is right for kids, keeping kids and staff safe, but also providing them with a meaningful education. I'm hoping that we're able to come back, but each school is going to be different. As I said, Jefferson's got some space, South Bristol has some space. Kim, I know, is ruminating about what spaces do I have and how do I fill those spaces? What do I need as far as personal protective equipment? What am I looking at as far as Lexan and other protective barriers, one-way hallways, use of bathrooms? And Kim, I see you're off mute and you have something to say.
Yeah,
I'll let you.
Yeah, because Mark and I have already started some of that work. You know, we have, you know, the site map that it shares with us, you know, the square footage in each room. One of the great things about having had the storage units that we have is, unlike some other schools in our communities, when we transition to utilizing more tables in the classroom as opposed to the individual desks, we actually stored many of those desks in the storage units. So the custodial crew has brought out those desks. They've cleaned them up because we're going to be bringing those into the classrooms because as much as possible, because again, you know, some of the tables that we have, it is harder unless we have dividers to do some of the recommended social distancing. So we're going to be switching out some of the tables with desks. And so we already have given the thought as to what are the number of students that we can have in a classroom, whether it be 6 foot. And I will share with the school board members that when the initial guidelines were indicating recommendations for 6 feet, that was very concerning to me because again, that number was going to necessitate using some other educational space in the building. When the guidelines changed to say 3 feet would be acceptable with the proper protective equipment or barriers, that is much more doable. So I do not have the same level of concerns about will we be able to meet, you know, have the number of students that we projected in a classroom that I did earlier when it was simply 6 feet. But Mark and I have already been doing a lot of those calculations. And as I said, we're actually bringing out some of the equipment that, you know, and furniture that we had stored. You know, one of the things that we will absolutely have to, and I've talked to the teachers about evaluating, is the fact that, you know, over the years, teachers have brought in some of their own personal furniture to make classrooms have a much more cozy feel, to, you know, store, you know, more bookcases and other items like that. Those other items are not going to be a priority any longer. And so, you know, we're going to have to, you know, again, make sure that we're maximizing our square footage in each classroom based on, you know, the needs of the students. So there's going to be some classrooms are going to look a little differently because the priority is getting as much spacing between students as possible. So, but I do, as I indicated, I do not have the same level of concerns as I did a couple of weeks ago when they were, what I was hearing over and over was strictly the 6 feet.
Thank you. Anyone else have questions on the board?
Stephanie, if I can just chime in, and if anyone, these are kind of the 3 o'clock in the morning questions. And if anyone wakes up at 2 or 3 and has a question, please send it off. Don't wait for a board meeting. Happy to answer. If it's on your mind, it's going to be on someone else's mind. As I said, walking through Jefferson today was a good experience because what John and Lindsay were talking about were, we looked at the one-way hallways. We looked at splitting the 2 opening doors in the front. One's in, one's out, separated by a physical barrier so that we're controlling traffic, we're controlling kids. We looked at lockers, we looked at lunch, we looked at all of those different, a lot of those different things that are on people's minds. I think as Kim mentions, the physical space, that actually is the easier piece of all of this. I think some of it is, the harder piece are the routines. It's the switch in instruction. Our teachers are dynamic, smart people, and they're gonna pick it up. We can put any kind of plan in place on paper. I mean, we're smart people, but it's the execution and it is the follow through that is going to be a challenge for us. And it's going to be an adjustment for everyone. But I do think that from everyone I've spoken to, kids want to be back in school, parents want their kids in school, teachers want to see their kids. I really hope that we are able to give it a try.
Could you point me to where this 3 foot thing is coming from? Because I've been reading a lot and I have not seen anything that says 3 feet. I've consistently seen 6 feet.
I'll send it to you, Kate. The American Academy of Pediatrics, I believe, is where it started, and it's grown from there. But I'm happy to send that one to you.
Okay. The other thing think we need to look at and go over, and I realize that things are changing a lot, is ventilation and airflow. I want to know if there's any discussion about getting these kids outside as much as possible. Everything that I've been reading in the past couple of days has said indoors is not good. I hate to be the like
No, you're in, and
the gloomy person here, but I sit here and read it all day.
you're not being the gloomy person. And airflow, air exchange is a huge issue. Mark is on top of it. We're having a lot of conversations around is the airflow, the exchange rates, and Mark has been attending workshops. We've just authorized an significant expenditure at South Bristol to put in new air handlers, exchangers, same in Bristol. So it is part of our back to school maintenance list that has been put together by Mark on one hand and John Carroll at Jefferson on another. So yes, it's definitely out there.
Okay, and the other thing is I would strongly suggest you get very solid numbers from parents before you start planning anything, because what I have been reading in larger populated areas and just kind of rumblings I'm hearing around town is there are a lot of people who are not going to send their children back to school. And so I think that we need to have real solid numbers. And if we need to have someone call every single parent and ask them yes or no, I think it needs to be done. New York Times said, or it was I think it was New York Times was floating around like 18% or something like that are not going to go back. And I also want to make very sure that the adults in the building are as safe as possible. All of these arguments that I've seen, and even some of the dialogue that we've had with each other, is about children. And obviously the safety of children is 100% paramount. And then the argument that children are not getting as sick and that they are not, you know, as contagious, but we have many adults in the building. Some of them are high risk. Some of them might not want to be willing to speak up and share with someone that they are high risk. And I just have concerns, a lot of concerns, and concerns about mask wearing and who's going to be making sure that everyone's doing that, and making sure that everyone is being cared for respectfully, and that includes all staff and students. And that's all I'm saying.
And I would just say that the MEA is a strong advocate for their membership, and they have reached out and let us know that they have concerns. And we are on top of what our appropriate response is. We're on top of what the different legislation, different rights, collective bargaining agreements say. You are absolutely right. We want both the students and the staff to be as safe as they can be.
Thank you, Kate, for that. Anybody else have any comments or questions? Okay. So that's the opening plan. Public comment. I do see one question, and that was, if the August meeting is changed to an earlier date, will the public be made aware of that change? And absolutely. We normally give a week notice. Is that a week or 10 days? A week?
We usually give a week notice. If it's changed, we try and get it out more broadly and would email the staff so that they are aware of that.
Okay. If anybody who is watching has a question or a comment, please post that in the Q&A right now. Okay.
Can I circle back to something way back? I just wanted to make sure that I publicly acknowledge Chris Coleman for helping me with the Black Lives Matter statement. It was a while. Like, it wasn't just me that wrote it. Chris had some input on behalf of the Teachers Association. So I just want to make sure I give Chris credit where credit is due.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kate.
And there are no other questions. So right now we're going to go into executive session, and Linda posted some instructions for anyone who's watching and who wants to come back when we come out of executive session. So consideration and action to adjourn the public portion of the GSB remote meeting to enter into remote executive session for the purpose of discussing school principal evaluation pursuant to 1 MSRA 4056 AD. We also have another consideration and action to adjourn, the public portion and go into executive session for the purpose of discussing negotiations between the public employer and the teacher and staff pursuant to 1 MSRA 405D. So I think together we can't go into executive session twice. So let's combine those. And can I have a motion to go in executive session for those two reasons?
So move.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Any questions? Okay, so roll call vote. I'm going to ask Mark.
Yes.
Okay, Kate,
Yes.
Josh,
Yes.
Sharon,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
Sharon. I mean, sorry, again, Angela.
Yes.
And Stephanie says yes, so we are now entering executive session.
Okay, and I've stopped the live stream.
Okay,
The attendees are gone. And Linda, you're leaving us? Is
Yeah.
that right? And then will Stephanie be in control?
uh-oh, you're muted.
And also, it's still recording. Does it still
Yeah,
record?
that was